What if a journey didn't just take you across the world, but completely flipped your whole view of humanity?
Okay.
Turned everything you thought you knew right on its head.
Right.
Imagine coming back home, to your normal life, and suddenly the people you love, people you admired, they just seem, well, monstrous. Or maybe just ridiculous.
It's a powerful idea.
Yeah, and that's just a taste, really, of the kind of profound, sometimes pretty unsettling transformation we're going to explore today.
Indeed. We're taking a deep dive into parts of Jonathan Swift's, well, monumental work, Gulliver's Travels. And, this is so much more than, like, a kid's story about tiny people and giants.
Oh, absolutely.
Our sources, the text itself, it really shows this sharp, almost ruthless satirical mirror that Swift held up to society, to government, even to basic human nature back then.
And maybe still holds up for us now, huh?
I think you'll find it holds up surprisingly well, yes.
Yeah. So, our mission for you, listening in, is to pull out the most insightful bits, the real nuggets, from Lemuel Gulliver's voyages. We want to help you see how this story, which seems so fantastical on the surface, actually critiques the world around us, maybe sparks some serious self-reflection, and perhaps even shifts how you think about things like, I don't know, reason or beauty or justice.
Precisely, what those concepts even mean.
Yeah. So get ready, because we're going to unpack some surprising details and I think some genuinely thought-provoking stuff. Let's dive in.
Okay, so to really get the impact of these radical shifts in Gulliver's perspective, we need to understand the man himself first, before his world gets totally turned upside down.
Right. Who was he before Lilliput?
Well, Lemuel Gulliver starts out as a pretty practical guy. Educated, but not some romantic adventurer type. He trained seriously as a surgeon.
Okay, a doctor. Demands precision, right. Grounded stuff.
Exactly. And crucially, he also studied navigation and mathematics at Leiden. So he's got the scientific background, the skills you'd need for long voyages, for careful observation.
So he's set up to be a reliable narrator, almost.
That's the idea Swift establishes. He's credible, seems objective, a man of rational inquiry, empirical knowledge, which makes what happens to him later all the more striking.
So he's not chasing thrills or glory. What actually sends him back to sea after his first trips and getting married? You mentioned his wife, Mary Burton.
Yeah, it's actually something much more, well, mundane, really, yet totally relatable. He runs into money problems in London.
Ah, the classic motivation.
His business as a surgeon fails. And Swift gives this little wry reason. His conscience would not suffer me to imitate the bad practice of too many among my brethren.
A little dig at the doctors of the time. Suggests Gulliver has some integrity, maybe? Or he's just naive about business?
Could be either or both. But the point is, it's necessity, plain and simple, not some grand adventure that sends him sailing off again.
Kind of a grim start, really, for such incredible adventures. Almost ordinary.
And that financial pressure puts him on the ship Antelope, which leads to this violent storm near Van Diemen's Land. He gives the latitude 30 degrees 2 minutes south.
Wow, specific.
Very. The ship's wrecked. He's shipwrecked, totally exhausted, helpless, just washed ashore.
And when he wakes up?
He finds himself completely bound. Tied down to the ground, can't move a muscle. Then he feels these little pricks, like so many needles.
Arrows.
Tiny arrows. And he hears these shrill, high-pitched voices he can't understand. That's his first contact with the Lilliputians. Just utter vulnerability, total disorientation.
What an immediate, whiplash of perspective. 1 minute you're a normal guy, captain of your fate. The next, you're a helpless giant in this miniature world.
Completely. And his first thought is pure survival. He's starving.
How does he even communicate that?
He figures it out, keeps pointing his finger to his mouth.
Right.
Resourceful even then. And the Hergo, a sort of great lord among them, gets it.
And they feed him.
They do. Bring him these tiny bits of meat, he says. They're smaller than the wings of a lark. And wine that tastes like a good Burgundy, just in thimble-sized barrels.
Incredible. Managing to communicate across that impossible scale difference, even when he's tied down.
It's a remarkable moment. And it shows his pragmatism, but also instantly how the power dynamic is just completely flipped. Sets the tone for everything.
And then they have to move him, right? The man mountain, they call him.
Yes. And this leads to this amazing feat of Lilliputian engineering. It really shows how organized they are, despite being tiny.
What do?
They build what they call an engine. It's basically a huge wooden frame, 7 feet long, 4 feet wide, on 22 wheels.
Pulled by
900 of their strongest men. And get this, 1,500 of their best horses. Imagine the coordination.
Just incredible. And Gulliver's awake for this?
Nope. completely out cold. They'd slipped a soporific, a sleeping draught, into his wine earlier. So this whole massive operation happens while he's in a profound sleep.
Swift uses these details, doesn't he? The numbers, the mechanics. It makes it sound almost believable, but also highlights the absurdity.
Exactly. It emphasizes their ingenuity, their collective power, but also just how bizarre the whole situation is.
Is that when the nose-tickling incident happens?
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Almost forgot. While they're moving him, completely unconscious, one of the guards apparently tickles his left nostril with the tip of a pike. Makes him sneeze violently.
He doesn't even know what caused it for ages. Classic little detail.
It is. So once he's in the capital, they house him in this old, disused temple. It's the only building big enough.
And they have to make everything for him, right? Beds, clothes.
Meticulously. They sew together 600 of their standard beds just to make his mattress. 300 tailors work on his clothes, taking incredibly precise measurements.
Again, that ingenuity. But it also shows how vulnerable they are to him just because of his size.
Absolutely. And Gulliver, quite cleverly, uses his size early on to establish his character, let's say. He shows clemency. Well, some Lilliputians shoot arrows at him early on. The ringleaders are caught and delivered to him for punishment. 6 of them.
What does he do? He could crush them.
He could. Instead, he puts 5 in his coat pocket. Then he takes the 6th, pretends he's going to eat him.
Terrifying for the little guy.
Must have been. But then he just cuts the man's bonds with his penknife and sets him gently on the ground. Then he does the same for the others.
Wow. A calculated move.
Seems like it. Both terrifying and merciful from their perspective. And it works. It hugely improves his standing at court. Shows he has immense power, but chooses not to use it maliciously.
So he's basically a giant, slightly unpredictable pet, but a mostly benevolent one.
In a way, yes. And his presence inevitably draws him into their court life, their political games. And this is where Swift really sharpens his satirical knives.
The politics. I remember the weird contests. The rope dancing.
Yes, the rope dancing. It's described as a diversion, but it's actually how candidates compete for high office.
They dance on a rope to become, like, Secretary of State.
Pretty much. They perform these tricky acrobatic maneuvers on a thin white thread stretched about 2 feet off the ground. If they fall, it's political ruin. Public humiliation. Career over. Instantly.
That's insane. So advancement isn't based on skill or wisdom, but on tightrope walking.
Exactly. It's a direct, brutal satire of the patronage system, the arbitrary ways people got power and favor in Swift's England. It's about performing for the powerful, not about actual competence.
And there was another game, too, wasn't there? With sticks?
Right. Leaping and creeping. The emperor holds out a stick and candidates have to leap over it or creep under it, backwards and forwards.
And the prize.
Silken threads, blue, red, and green. These are the highest honors, like the Order of the Garter or Bath in England, badges of royal favor.
Awarded for jumping over a stick.
Awarded for agility and pleasing the emperor. And Swift makes a point. He says, these infamous practices were brought in by the current emperor's grandfather. They're linked to party and faction.
Which brings us to the high heels and low heels.
The Tremixan and Slamixan, yes. The 2 major political factions, distinguished solely by the height of their shoe heels. The high heels supposedly favor the old constitution.
And the low heels are the emperor's party.
Yes, the emperor wears low heels, so his administration favors the Slamixan. And the animosity between them is intense. They won't eat together, drink together, or even talk to each other.
All because of shoe heels.
It's Swift's commentary on the seemingly trivial, yet deeply divisive nature of political factions like the Whigs and Tories in his own time. How minor differences could lead to profound social and political hatred. The absurdity is the point.
It's kind of depressingly familiar, actually, using tiny things to symbolize huge divides.
Isn't it just? But beyond the court's absurdity, Lilliputian society does have some interesting laws and customs that Swift presents almost approvingly, as a contrast to Europe.
Like what?
Well, for one, how they treat false accusers. If someone brings a malicious accusation against another and it's proven false, the accuser faces severe punishment, sometimes even death.
It takes false accusations seriously.
Very. But on the flip side, they actually reward good behavior. If someone follows a law impeccably for 73 moons, that's almost 6 years, they get special titles and financial rewards.
So incentivizing virtue, not just punishing crime.
That seems to be the idea Swift is presenting. A system focused on positive reinforcement.
And their ideas about raising children are pretty radical too, right?
Extremely radical for the time. They believe parents are the last of all others to be trusted with the education of their own children.
Wow. Why?
They think parental fondness and folly make them unsuitable. So kids are sent off to public nurseries from a very young age, about 20 moons old.
Raised by the state, essentially.
By trained professionals, yeah. They're taught principles of honor, justice, courage, modesty, mercy, religion, and patriotism. Strict schedules, lots of exercise, very disciplined.
And girls, too.
Girls of quality get a distinct education, aimed at making them reasonable and agreeable companions, focusing on intellect and morals, not just sewing and dancing like in Europe then. It's a kind of rational, utopian vision of child rearing.
Contrasting it with, I guess, the haphazard or indulgent way kids were raised in England.
Precisely. And then there's the really striking one. Ingratitude.
What about it?
It's a capital crime.
Seriously.
Why? Their reasoning is stark. Someone who repays kindness with evil must be a common enemy to mankind, and therefore, such a man is not fit to live.
That's intense. A society that values gratitude that highly.
It's a profound moral stance. Swift seems to be highlighting a virtue he felt was sorely lacking, suggesting fundamental morality should trump political games.
But that high-mindedness doesn't seem to apply to their wars, does it? The war with Blefuscu over eggs?
Ah, yes, the Egg War. The source of conflict between Lilliput and the neighboring island empire of Blefuscu is centuries old, and it all started over which end of an egg to break before eating.
You're kidding.
Not at all. Originally, everyone broke the big end, but one emperor's son cut his finger doing that, so the emperor decreed everyone must break the smaller end.
The little Indians.
Exactly. But many refused, clinging to the old way, the big Indians. This led to rebellions, thousands executed, books written, and eventually the big Indians fleeing to Blefuscu, fueling an endless war.
It's such a perfect satire of religious wars, isn't it? Catholics versus Protestants, maybe? Old traditions versus reforms?
That's widely seen as the primary target, yes. The utter absurdity of massive, bloody conflicts based on seemingly tiny points of doctrine or ritual. Swift shows how trivial differences get blown up into existential struggles.
And Gulliver gets pulled right into this absurdity, becomes a war hero even.
He does. He performs this incredible military feat. He wades and swims across the channel, separating the two islands.
Which for him isn't that far, but for them.
Exactly. He faces down thousands of arrows, just like needles to him, attaches hooks with cables to the prows of the entire Blefuscudian fleet.
The whole fleet.
50 warships. And he just pulls them all back across the channel to Lilliput. Single-handedly wins the war, essentially.
A massive victory. They must have loved him for that.
They did, initially. He's granted the highest honor. But as things often go in politics, even heroic acts can sour.
How?
Well, he refuses the emperor's demand to go back and destroy the rest of Blefuscu's ships and enslave the people. He thinks it's too harsh. Then he visits the Blefuscudian monarch, which looks suspicious. Plus, some court officials like Flimnap the treasurer and Bolgolam the admiral were already jealous of his favor.
So court intrigue strikes again.
Big time. They conspire against him, drop articles of impeachment, accuse him of treason.
For winning their war.
For not being ruthless enough afterwards, for consorting with the enemy, basically for being inconvenient to their own power. Politics.
And the punishments they considered were nasty.
Truly horrific.
Yeah.
Blinding him was the merciful option debated, or even worse, poisoning him slowly. Secretly applying poison to his shirts and chairs so he'd waste away over months.
Just awful. Reviews the cruelty under the surface.
Definitely. So Gulliver, getting wind of this through a loyal friend at court, realizes he's in mortal danger. He sees how fickle princes and ministers are.
So he has to escape.
He makes a run for it. He gets permission to visit Blefuscu, pretending it's just a short trip. Once there, the king offers him protection. But Gulliver's had enough. He vows never more to put any confidence in princes or ministers.
Can't blame him.
He finds a ship's boat washed ashore, repairs it, stocks it with provisions, including live Lilliputian cattle and sheep he'd kept as pets.
To prove his story back home?
Exactly. He wanted proof,
Yeah.
though the Blefuscudian king wisely prevents him from taking any Lilliputian people with him.
Probably for the best. Keep their existence secret.
So he sets sail in his makeshift boat and is eventually picked up by an English merchant ship, the Adventure.
And the captain, Mr. Wilcox, he must have thought Gulliver was crazy.
Initially, yes, totally disbelieving. Who wouldn't be? But Gulliver, ever the pragmatist, has his proof.
The tiny animals?
The tiny cows and sheep. He shows them to the captain, along with some gold from Blefuscu and a miniature portrait. Tangible evidence that clearly convinced him of my veracity.
It's always about the physical proof for Gulliver, isn't it? Underscores that observer role.
It does. And this first journey, this massive shift in scale, it really messes with his head, setting him up for even bigger distortions later on.
Yeah, because he doesn't stay home long, does he?
Not at all. You'd think after Lilliput he'd had enough adventure. But maybe it's restlessness, maybe he just can't readjust to normal life. Only 2 months after getting
He's off again.
back to sea. This time as surgeon on the Adventure, the very ship that rescued him. And this voyage leads to another storm, another separation from his crew, near the Cape of Good Hope. And he finds himself in Brobdingnag.
The land of the giants, so the complete opposite experience.
Exactly. A total jarring reversal. He sees these inhabitants who are as tall as an ordinary spire steeple, taking 10 yards at every stride.
Suddenly, he's the tiny one.
He goes from being the man-mountain to being utterly insignificant. Inconsiderable, he calls himself. And his first reaction is pure terror. He thinks they'll just step on him or maybe pick him up and eat him like a morsel.
A complete psychological flip. From dominant to completely vulnerable.
And he gets captured, right? By a farmer. Yes, by one of these giant farmers who initially just sees him as vermin, a small, dangerous animal to be gotten rid of.
And the farmer's wife.
She screams at first, like women in England might scream at a toad or a spider, he says. But then, surprisingly, she becomes quite gentle and protective of him.
But the farmer sees a business opportunity.
He does. He starts displaying Gulliver at market towns, puts him on a table, makes him perform 100 diverting tricks for paying crowds of giants.
How humiliating. Being treated like a circus freak.
He finds it exhausting and deeply vexing. But he tries to rationalize it, philosophically. He thinks, well, even the King of Great Britain would be in the same boat if you were this small in this land. It's about circumstance.
That helps him cope, I guess. But he finds a real protector, doesn't he? The farmer's daughter.
Glumdalclitch, yes.
Yep.
She's 9 years old, but already 40 feet tall. She becomes his nurse, his caretaker, his little nurse, as he calls her, ironically.
She looks after him.
Devotedly. She makes him tiny clothes, a little box to travel in, a bed, a table. She's constantly worried about his safety, protecting him from accidents, or even the farmer's carelessness. She's really his lifeline in this terrifying place.
And she's upset when he gets sold.
Heartbroken. The farmer eventually sells Gulliver to the queen for 1,000 pieces of gold, which Gulliver notes isn't actually that much, given his rarity.
But he makes sure Glumdalclitch stays with him.
Yes, he cleverly makes that a condition of the sale. He knows he needs her. Their bond is quite touching, actually, a rare bit of genuine affection in the story.
So now he's at the royal court. Safer, maybe.
Safer in some ways, but court life brings its own dangers, even giant dangers. There's the queen's dwarf.
A giant dwarf.
Yep, 20 feet tall. But because Gulliver is even smaller, the dwarf hates him, sees him as a rival for royal attention.
What does the dwarf do?
Malicious tricks. He traps Gulliver inside a hollowed-out marrow bone at dinner once. Gulliver is furious but considers it too dignified to cry out. Another time, the dwarf shakes apples off a tree onto him.
Petty cruelty.
And then there are the everyday animals, magnified to monstrous proportions.
Right. Like the queen's pet cat.
Purring like a dozen stocking weavers at their looms. Imagine the noise.
And the rats.
Oh, the rats in his bedroom. He describes them as being the size of a large mastiff. He has to fight them off with his little sword, his hanger, a terrifying battle against common vermin.
And wasps, too.
Huge wasps, as large as partridges, buzzing around his food. He kills 4 of them and keeps their stings, which are 1.5 inches long. Constant mundane threats become life and death struggles.
Really drives home his fragility.
It does. And it leads him to reflect on things like booty.
How so?
Well, he remembers the Lilliputians thought his skin was coarse. Now, in Brobdingnag, he looks closely at the giant's skin, even the beautiful queen's maids of honor. And up close, their skin looks rough, uneven, full of blemishes. He sees moles as broad as a trencher, hairs as thick as pack threads. It makes him realize that the beautiful ladies of England, whom he admired, would probably look just as flawed under a magnifying glass. Beauty, he concludes, is relative. It depends entirely on scale and perspective.
That's a really profound observation, actually. Challenges our whole standard.
It does. And this physical shift leads directly to a massive philosophical clash with the King of Brobdingnag.
Ah, the king. He's portrayed quite differently from the Lilliputian emperor, isn't he?
Completely. He's presented as wise, learned, rational, and enlightened monarch. He's genuinely curious about Europe and spends hours talking with Gulliver.
Asking about England's government, laws, history.
Yes, and Gulliver initially answers with patriotic pride, describing England's institutions, its parliament, its justice system, its history,
How does the king react?
with growing horror and contempt. After listening carefully to Gulliver's accounts, the king delivers this absolutely devastating judgment.
What does he say?
He concludes that the bulk of Gulliver's countrymen must be the most pernicious race of little odious vermin that nature ever suffered to crawl upon the surface of the earth,
Wow. Harsh, based on Gulliver's own description.
based entirely on what Gulliver told him. The king hears about England's history and sees only a heap of conspiracies, rebellions, murders, massacres, revolutions. He hears about the legal system and sees lawyers paid to argue falsehoods. He hears about ministers getting rich through corruption.
So Gulliver's pride becomes the source of his country's condemnation.
Exactly. And the king's moral superiority is highlighted when Gulliver, trying to be helpful, offers to teach him how to make gunpowder.
Thinking it's a great invention, a tool of power.
Right. But the king is utterly horrified. He cannot believe humans would invent something so destructive, designed purely for killing. He thinks only some evil genius, enemy to mankind, could have come up with it. He forbids Gulliver from ever mentioning it again.
He just doesn't get that kind of thinking.
His philosophy of government is simple. Common sense, reason, justice, mercy. No need for the mystery, refinement, and intrigue of European politics. Swift uses this giant, rational king to basically voice his own deepest criticisms of European society, the pointless wars, the legal corruption, the moral failings of power.
The king is almost an ideal ruler compared to what Gulliver knows.
He represents a standard of rational, moral governance that Swift implies humanity consistently fails to reach. It's a powerful critique.
So Gulliver lives there for a while, but eventually wants to leave.
Yes, he grows weary of court life, feels increasingly like a curiosity, and longs to see the sea again, perhaps hoping for rescue.
And his escape is accidental, involving his travel box.
Entirely accidental. Glumdalclitch usually carries his special traveling box, which is fitted out like a little room. One day near the coast, a page takes the box, and Gulliver asks to be left by the shore for some fresh air, falling asleep inside.
And then,
A giant eagle swoops down, grabs the ring on top of the box, and flies off with it.
just like that.
Just like that. The eagle probably intends to drop the box on a rock to break it open like a tortoise shell. But other eagles attack it, and in the fight, it drops the box into the sea.
Unbelievable twist of fate. Pure chance.
Highlights how little control he has. He's just bobbing around in the ocean inside his wooden box.
How does he get rescued this time?
He manages to open a little window, sees a ship, and waves his handkerchief tied to a stick. Sailors on Captain Thomas Wilcox's ship spot the floating box.
They must have been baffled.
Completely. They think it's a swimming house. When they haul him out, tiny Gulliver speaking English, they think he's lost his mind, maybe a criminal escaping justice. His behavior seems totally erratic.
So again, he needs proof.
Again, he shows the captain his collection of Brobdingnagian souvenirs.
What did he manage to keep?
A comb made from stumps of the king's beard hair. A ring the queen gave him. Parings of the queen's thumbnail. 4 wasp stings. Breeches made from mouse skin. Even a giant footman's tooth the size of an apple.
That's quite the collection. The tangible evidence.
It convinces the captain. But the experience has profoundly changed Gulliver when he gets back to England.
He sees everyone as tiny.
Yes. His perspective is totally warped by his time among the giants. He sees his own family, his countrymen, as the most little contemptible creatures I had ever beheld. Their voices sound shrill. He has to consciously stop himself from stooping to walk through doorways.
The world stayed the same, but he changed deeply.
The psychological impact is huge. His perception of normal is completely shattered.
So these first 2 voyages, Lilliput and Brobdingnag, they're like mirror images, aren't they? Using scale to mess with our heads.
Exactly. They're brilliant narrative devices. In Lilliput, human power and politics look ridiculous when shrunk down. Petty squabbles over eggs and heels.
And in Brobdingnag, human pride and achievement seem utterly insignificant next to the giants, our flaws magnified.
Swift uses scale to strip away our usual biases, force us to see ourselves from the outside, how arbitrary our sense of importance is, how context defines everything. It makes you question your own viewpoint.
Okay, if those 2 voyages were about physical scale, the third one goes somewhere else entirely, right? More into the realm of the mind.
Precisely. It delves into intellectualism, science, history, even immortality, often showing how abstract thought can become detached from reality sometimes dangerously so.
And it starts, predictably for Gulliver, with trouble at sea.
Of course. Mutiny this time by his own crew, instigated by pirates they unwisely took aboard. They set him adrift in a small boat, and he eventually finds his way to Laputa.
The Flying Island.
The Flying Island, yes.
Little...
And the Lilliputians themselves are immediately strange. Their clothes are decorated with astronomical symbols, musical instruments.
And their heads are tilted.
Often tilted to one side, their eyes looking inward or upward, deep in thought. So deep, in fact, that they need servants called flappers.
Flappers, what do?
They carry inflated bladders on sticks, filled with pebbles or dried peas. They gently tap the Lilliputian on the mouth when it's their turn to speak, or on the ear when they need to listen.
Because they're too lost in thought to notice otherwise.
Exactly. Their minds are so taken up with intense speculations that they neither can speak nor attend to the discourses of others without being roused by some external taction. It's instant satire intellectualism, completely divorced from social interaction, from reality.
A total bubble. And they're obsessed with maths and music.
Utterly obsessed, to the exclusion of almost everything practical. You see it even in their food.
Right, the geometric food.
Meat cut into triangles, rhomboids, cycloids, bread shaped like cones and cylinders. Every meal is a maths lesson.
But the irony is, their practical skills are terrible.
Hilariously bad.
Yeah.
Despite their theoretical brilliance in geometry, their houses are very ill-built, the walls bevel without one right angle. They despise practical geometry, so their calculations lead to shoddy work.
Abstract knowledge is useless if you can't build a straight wall.
That's Swift's point exactly. It's a critique of knowledge for its own sake, divorced from application, maybe aimed at institutions like the Royal Society, which he sometimes felt were pursuing obscure theories while ignoring practical problems.
And their intellectualism makes them anxious too.
Constantly worried, not about real problems, but about remote astronomical catastrophes. Will the Earth fall into the sun? Will the sun burn out? Will a comet hit them? Their knowledge fuels anxiety, not solutions.
So detached. And the island itself, it's used for control.
Yes, it's quite sinister. The island floats using a giant magnetic lodestone at its core. The king can move it anywhere above the kingdom of Balnabarbi on the ground below.
How does that give him control?
He can hover over rebellious towns, blocking out their sun and rain. He can drop rocks on them, or, in extreme cases, threaten to lower the entire island and crush the town completely.
That's terrifying. Intellectuals wielding oppressive power from above, totally disconnected from the people below.
A chilling image of abstract tyranny, yes.
So Gulliver then goes down to Balnabarbi, the land below Laputa. What's it like there?
It's mostly desolate. Fields are uncultivated, houses falling apart. A stark contrast to Laputa's floating order. But there are a few exceptions, well-managed estates belonging to lords who ignore the fashionable new projects.
Projects? From where?
From the Grand Academy of Legato. This is where the Lilliputian obsession with abstract theory has translated into disastrous practical experiments on the ground. The Academy is dedicated to improving life through science, but the results are, well,
ridiculous.
Utterly ridiculous and counterproductive. This is where Swift really lets loose his satire on scientific experimentation gone wild.
Okay, give us some examples. What kind of projects are they working on?
Oh, it's a goldmine. One professor has been working for 8 years to extract sunbeams from cucumbers.
Extract sunbeams from cucumbers? To do what?
To bottle them up and release them to warm the air in summer. Another is trying to turn ice back into gunpowder. Another is trying to build houses starting from the roof and working downwards.
That sounds structurally unsound.
You think? Then there's the guy trying to plow fields by burying acorns and then turning hogs loose to root them up, supposedly tilling the soil. A project to breed sheep with no wool at all.
Why would you want woolless sheep?
Swift doesn't even bother explaining the why sometimes. The projects are just absurd on their face. There's another trying to weave cloth using spiders by feeding them different colored flies.
Colored spider webs?
Supposedly. And another trying to condense air into a solid substance. Softening marble to use in pillows. Petrifying horse hooves to prevent them wearing out. It's just this relentless parade of pointless, impractical, resource-wasting innovations.
It's a powerful critique of progress for its own sake without common sense.
Absolutely. Progress that leads to ruin because it ignores reality.
And they mess with language too, don't they?
Oh, yes. The School of Languages in the Academy. Some professors want to shorten discourse by cutting out verbs and participles, since all things imaginable are nouns.
Just nouns. How would that work?
It wouldn't, really. But the most extreme project is to abolish words altogether.
Abolish words. How would people communicate?
by carrying around all the objects they might need to discuss. Since words are only names for things, they figure, why not just show the things themselves?
So if you wanted to talk about lunch, you'd have to carry your lunch around.
And everything else you might conceivably want to mention. Swift describes two professors, laden with huge bundles of objects on their backs, meeting in the street, putting down their packs, and silently conversing for an hour by pointing at things.
That's brilliant satire. The ultimate reductionism, completely impractical, targets those trying to create perfect logical languages, maybe?
Very likely. Philosophers trying to strip language down in ways that ignore how humans actually use it.
And the political projectors, are their ideas just as crazy?
Just as bizarre. One project suggests diagnosing political dissent by having physicians examine senators' excrement to understand their thoughts and plots.
Seriously.
Seriously. Another proposes reconciling political parties by sawing off the back of their brains the part responsible for opposition and swapping them. Half Whig, half Tory brain in each head.
Medically enforced consensus.
Then there are schemes for raising taxes, painlessly taxing vices, or taxing beauty and vanity, and methods for uncovering plots by studying papers for anagrams or hidden meanings. Utterly convoluted and nonsensical.
It really paints a picture of intellectual effort completely wasted on absurdity.
Total detachment from reality.
Wow.
From Legato, Gulliver travels to Glubbdubdrib.
The island of sorcerers.
Right, where the governor has the power of necromancy, he can summon the spirits of the dead.
Wow. Who does Gulliver ask to see?
Initially, he's excited. He wants to meet the great figures of history. Alexander the Great, Hannibal, Caesar, Brutus, Socrates, Sir Thomas More. Heroes, thinkers, supposed paragons of virtue or power.
Does meeting them live up to expectations?
Not quite. He finds Alexander wasn't poisoned, but died of fever and excessive drinking. He learns Hannibal didn't use vinegar to dissolve alpine rocks. History gets corrected. But the real disillusionment comes when he talks to more recent figures.
What does he find out?
He asks to see the modern English aristocracy, the recent generations, and he discovers that history books are full of lies, written by prostitute writers who praise cowards as heroes, fools as wise men, villains as virtuous.
So the official record is completely unreliable.
He sees it as largely propaganda. He summons courtiers and finds out how people really got titles and fortunes through perjury, oppression, subornation, fraud, sometimes poisoning or betraying their predecessors. His respect for nobility is a little abated, as he puts it mildly.
It shatters his illusions about the great people of history and his own time.
Completely. He sees corruption as the norm, not the exception. He even concludes cynically that real virtue is often a perpetual clog to public business. It gets in the way of the ruthless maneuvering needed for power.
A very bleak view of history and politics.
Deeply skeptical. Swift is using necromancy as a device to expose the hidden corruption behind the facade of power and reputation.
And the final stop on this third voyage, Lugnag and the Struldbrugs.
Yes. First, Lugnag itself has a bizarre court ritual. To get an audience with the king, you have to crawl on your belly and lick the floor.
Lick the floor.
Yes, and if you have enemies at court, they might sprinkle poison on the floor or just extra dust for you to lick up, a symbol of utter subservience and potential danger.
Grim. But the Struldbrugs are the main event here, aren't they? The immortals.
They are. Gulliver hears about them, people born with a spot over their left eyebrow, signifying they will never die. And initially, he's ecstatic.
He thinks immortality is amazing.
He goes into raptures, thinks how wonderful it would be. They could accumulate infinite knowledge, wealth, guide humanity with their wisdom. He imagines all the great things he would do if he were immortal.
But the reality is different.
Horrifyingly different. He learns the Struldbrugs don't stay young, they just keep aging. Forever.
So eternal old age.
With all its infirmities, physical and mental. After 80, they're considered legally dead. Their heirs inherit. They become opinionative, peevish, covetous, morose, vain, talkative, forgetful, unable to read, incapable of friendship or conversation. They envy the dead.
Oh my God. That's awful.
They live like ghosts in their own country, despised and shunned. They see generations born and die, lose everyone they ever knew. Their minds decay, but they can't die themselves. It's presented as the ultimate curse.
So Gulliver's enthusiasm cools off.
It's much abated, he says dryly. He realizes that no tyrant could invent a death into which I would not run with pleasure from such a life. It completely reverses his perspective on mortality.
Makes you think maybe a finite life is what gives life meaning.
That seems to be Swift's profound point. The horror of the Struldbrugs forces a reevaluation of what constitutes a good life. Endless existence, isn't it?
After all that, how does he get home this time?
He travels from Luggnagg to Japan to get passage on a Dutch ship. The Dutch were the only Europeans allowed into Japan then, under strict rules.
And he has to pretend to be Dutch.
Yes. He even has to deal with the ceremony of trampling on the crucifix, which Dutch traders sometimes did to prove they weren't Portuguese Catholics.
Does he do it?
Interestingly, he manages to avoid it. He persuades the Emperor of Japan, through an interpreter, to excuse him from the ceremony, claiming it would be scandalous in his own country if known. It's a rare moment where Gulliver shows some, albeit pragmatic, moral spine.
And then he sails back to England via Amsterdam. End of voyage 3. Wow, that was a journey through intellectual highs and lows.
From pure abstraction to historical disillusionment to the horror of immortality, it really dissects the limits and dangers of human reason and ambition.
Okay, prepare yourself, because the 4th voyage, this one goes to a place that changes Gulliver perhaps more profoundly, more disturbingly than any other. The country of the Houyhnhnms.
Ah, yes. The land of the rational horses. This is the culmination in many ways.
How does he get there? Let me guess.
Mutiny again. He's made captain of his own ship this time, but his crew turns against him, confines him to his cabin, and then abandons him on an unknown shore, utterly alone.
And the first beings he encounters.
Not the horses. First, he sees these creatures, the Yahoos.
The Yahoos. Describe them.
He describes them with visceral disgust. They look vaguely human, naked, hairy, clawed, but seem utterly bestial. Deformed, detestable, covered in filth, climbing trees, showing primitive aggression. He finds them repulsive.
A sort of degraded humanity.
Exactly. They seem to embody pure, unadulterated, animalistic vice. He feels an immediate, violent antipathy towards them.
And then he meets the Houyhnhnms.
Yes. He sees a horse walking calmly in a field. Then another. They seem to be communicating, behaving with dignity and intelligence. Gulliver is astonished. He initially assumes they must be magicians who've transformed themselves.
He can't believe rational horses.
The idea is completely alien. He thinks the Yahoos must be the dominant species, and these intelligent horses are somehow subservient or enchanted.
But the reality is the opposite.
The complete opposite. The Houyhnhnms, these calm, graceful horses, are the masters. They are perfectly rational beings, governing themselves through pure reason. And the Yahoos, they are the irrational, savage beasts kept by Houyhnhnms, almost like livestock.
That's the ultimate inversion, isn't it? Horses are rational, humans or human-like creatures are brutes.
It's Swift's most radical move. It forces the reader and Gulliver to confront the possibility that human nature itself, stripped bare, is fundamentally Yahoo-like, and that true reason might reside elsewhere entirely.
How does Gulliver even begin to communicate with horses?
He listens intently, observes their sounds, begins to associate noises with actions. He works incredibly hard to learn their language, and he finds it difficult, especially concepts that are alien to them.
Like what?
Like lying, or deception, or even just expressing uncertainty.
They don't have words for those.
No word for lie. The very concept is incomprehensible to them. Their language is purely for conveying truth based on reason. Why would you say the thing which is not? It makes no sense to them.
Wow, a society built entirely on truth.
Absolute truth and logic. This floors Gulliver, and it starts his profound admiration for them.
What about his practical life there? Food, shelter.
He lives with one Houyhnhnm family, his master. He builds himself a small hut. For food, he struggles at first. He can't eat their raw meat or grass. Eventually, he finds he can make a kind of bread from oats and drink milk.
A simple diet.
Very simple. And he makes a striking observation. During his entire time there, over 2 years, he never had 1 hour's sickness. He concludes human illnesses come from luxury, excess, and unnatural foods, like salt, which he thinks is purely a luxury.
So simple living equals health.
In this utopia, yes. But the Houyhnhnms have a problem with Gulliver.
What's that?
His appearance. Despite his clothes and cleanliness, they see his underlying physical form is identical to a Yahoo.
Oh, that must hurt.
It's deeply disturbing for him. He's forced to confront this physical resemblance. He tries to explain he's different, cleaner, more rational. But the Houyhnhnms, operating on pure logic, classify him based on form.
Does he accept it?
Reluctantly. But it fuels his hatred for the Yahoos. He sees in them all the potential vices of humanity, raw and undisguised, and he detests them, and by extension starts to detest himself and his own species.
So how does Houyhnhnm society actually work if it's based on pure reason?
Their grand maxim is to cultivate reason and to be wholly governed by it. That's the foundation.
What does that mean in practice? No disagreements.
Pretty much. Because reason leads to truth, There are no controversies, wranglings, disputes, no opinions, only reasoned conclusions. Decisions are made calmly, logically, for the good of the community. It's depicted as perfectly harmonious.
What about things like family, marriage?
Governed by reason, too. Marriages aren't based on love or attraction, but arranged rationally to preserve the race from degenerating. They pair individuals based on strength, health, color to produce the best offspring. Each couple has only two foals, one male, one female.
Population control.
Rational population management, yes. And children are raised primarily by their parents. There's communal education focused on developing strength, speed, hardiness, and above all, reason. Temperance, industry, cleanliness, civility are ingrained.
Sounds efficient. Cold, maybe?
From a human perspective, perhaps. But Swift presents it as purely rational, devoid of messy emotions or favoritism. Their government is a representative council that meets every 4 years to discuss community needs resource distribution, managing Yahoo populations, ensuring fairness across the land. Highly organized.
Do they have arts, culture?
Simple functional crafts, buildings made of wood and straw, tools from flint. Their poetry, however, is highly esteemed. Gulliver praises it for its justness of their similes and the minuteness as well as exactness of their descriptions. Poetry based on truth and precision, not flights of fancy.
And the most striking thing, no evil.
The concept is absent. They have no words for things like envy, greed, lust, power, hunger, unless they borrow them from describing the Yahoos. Evil for them is literally synonymous with Yahoo nature.
That's profound. It implies evil isn't inherent, but a corruption may be linked to flawed reason or passion.
That's the implication. And it sets up the Houyhnhnm critique of human society, which Gulliver delivers.
He tells his master about Europe.
Yes, and in explaining his own world, trying to justify human ways, he inadvertently exposes all our vices.
Like war.
He explains the causes of European wars, ambition of princes, corruption of ministers, religious differences, sheer mercenary motives. Sometimes, he says, one prince attacks another simply for fear the other should quarrel with him. Preemptive war based on paranoia.
How does the master react?
With bafflement and disgust. He cannot comprehend creatures endowed with reason acting so irrationally, so destructively.
What about law? Money?
Gulliver explains the legal system lawyers trained to prove that white is black and black is white according as they are paid. The master is appalled. He explains human obsession with money, hoarding useless shining stones. The master compares it to yahoos fighting over glittering pebbles they find in the mud. He sees no difference in the motivation.
And luxury. Social status.
Gulliver describes the rich feeding on 1,000 others, the diseases caused by rich food and drink, the pursuit of fashion. Needing the whole globe of Earth must be at least 3 times gone round before one of our better female yahoos could get her breakfast. The master is horrified by the injustice and irrationality.
So the Houyhnhnms' conclusion about humans...
It's damning. The master concludes that humans are not truly rational. We have some reason, yes, but it's corrupted. It doesn't guide us to virtue, like in Houyhnhnms, but instead serves only to aggravate our natural vices, making us more cunning, more depraved, more destructive than the brute yahoos. Reason, in humans, is a tool for evil.
Worse than just being an animal.
Far worse, in the master's view, because we should know better. This critique devastates Gulliver.
He starts to agree with the horses.
Completely. He internalizes their view. He develops this intense love and veneration for the Houyhnhnms, seeing them as perfect beings. And conversely, he develops an absolute loathing for yahoos, and by extension, for humanity, including himself.
She wants to stay there forever.
He forms a firm resolution never to return to humankind. He starts imitating the Houyhnhnms' gait and neighing speech. He feels cured of human flaws just by being near them.
But they don't let him stay.
No. Despite his transformation, the Houyhnhnm General Assembly decides he must leave.
Why? If he admires them so much.
Because he is fundamentally a Yahoo, albeit one with a small proportion of reason. They fear his presence is unnatural. They worry he might incite the local Yahoos to rebellion, or that his example might somehow corrupt the Houyhnhnms themselves. He represents a dangerous anomaly.
So even Paradise rejects him. Tragic irony.
Deeply ironic. He's devastated. His master helps him build a canoe over 2 months.
A sad...
Very poignant. The master, the sorrel nag, comes down to the shore. Gulliver tries to kiss his hoof, but the horse raises it gently to my mouth, a gesture of rational yet real affection. It's heartbreaking for Gulliver.
And then he's rescued again by humans.
Yes, picked up by a Portuguese ship, captained by the kind Pedro de Mendes, but Gulliver's reaction is extreme.
Revulsion.
Utter revulsion. The sight and smell of the human sailors horrifies him. He sees them only as yahoos. He begs to be left on a desert island rather than return with them. Captain Mendez treats him with incredible patience and kindness. But Gulliver perceives them all as monstrous.
He can barely speak properly.
His voice has taken on a neighing quality from imitating the Houyhnhnms. The psychological conditioning is that deep.
And back in England, how does he cope?
He doesn't, really. He can't stand the sight or smell of his own wife and children. He faints when his wife kisses him upon his return. He sees them as yahoos, too.
He prefers horses.
He buys 2 stallions, stables them, spends hours talking to them every day. They are his preferred company. He feels more comfortable with them than with his own family, whom he can barely tolerate in the same room.
That's incredibly sad. A complete alienation from his own kind.
It's the devastating final outcome of his journeys. He's seen too much, understood too much perhaps, and can no longer reconcile himself with human imperfection. He's left a stranger in his own world, forever yearning for the rational purity of the Houyhnhnms.
So wrapping this all up, what's the takeaway for us, reading this centuries later? It's more than just an adventure, clearly.
Oh, much more. It's a masterclass in shifting perspective. Each voyage forces Gulliver, and us, the readers, to confront our basic assumptions. What is normal? What is beautiful? What does it mean to be rational? What is justice?
It holds up that mirror, right? Reflecting our own society, our own nature back at us, but distorted through these fantastical lenses.
Exactly. It strips away our comfortable human-centric view. We see our politics as petty and Lilliput, our pride as fragile and Brobdingnag, our intellectual pursuits as potentially absurd and Laputa, our history as corrupt, our desire for immortality as misguided, and finally, our very humanity as potentially bestial compared to the Houyhnhnms' reason.
Swift himself, or Gulliver speaking for him, said his goal wasn't just to entertain, but to inform, to make mankind wiser and better by showing both good and bad examples.
Right. He claimed to write without passion, prejudice, or ill will, just holding up that mirror. And this dive really shows that progression. Scale reveals folly, abstract thought leads to disaster, and maybe true reason isn't where we typically look for it.
That final point about the Houyhnhnms, it's the most challenging, isn't it? They had no word for pride. They couldn't grasp how an animal like a yahoo, or by extension a human, and such a vice could even exist together.
It couldn't compute for them.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. In our world, we talk so much about progress, self-improvement, using our reason. But how often do we really stop and question the foundations of that reason? Is it truly aimed at objective truth and virtue like the Houyhnhnms?
Or is it more often just a tool we use to justify our own desires, our own biases, our own Yahoo impulses, as the master suggested, a way to make our vices seem rational?
And if the biggest flaws, the deepest vices, are ones we barely have words for, or ones we refuse to see in ourselves, like pride maybe, how would we ever even begin to recognize them, let alone fix them?
That is the deeply unsettling question Swift leaves us with, something to definitely mull over.
Indeed. Until our next deep dive.